Welcome to Freaked Out with your co-hosts, Liz and Landon.
What's up, everybody?
Hey guys, so we had to record this episode a little early as we are in the process of moving, but by the time we get to our new home, we won't be able to record anything until after the 15th of October, so we made sure to prepare these episodes in advance.
Yes, during all of this crazy retrograde.
We also want to give everyone an update on the Judith Barcy episode. So when we were getting this episode all prepared, so many strange things were happening.
Liz was feeling sick during the entire time that she was doing the episode. She kept on getting fevers. The spirits didn't mess with the document, which is great, but added those random numbers that we had posted in the group a few weeks ago. By the way, guys, if you're not following our Facebook group, please go over there and follow us. It's Freaked Out Podcast on Facebook. We had no idea what the numbers meant. When we were posting that episode, it saved with random numbers attached for whatever reason.
Exactly. So we are still trying to figure that out at the moment, but if we get any updates on it, we'll let you know. We were also at the 6-day mark before moving, and I was in the middle of writing the words, "He felt like she had broke his heart and wanted to break hers just as bad." And we heard a crash. We thought it was the stairs leading up to our apartment because they're pretty shaky. We always make jokes about it. Noticed nothing. And then we carried on with our night when we got a knock on the door saying that someone had crashed into our truck.
We were pretty nervous at this point that something bad had happened, like the whole car being totaled. We went down to see what had happened, and the person crashed into our fence, and then they hit our car. They left pretty quickly, and when they crashed into the fence and into our car, it ended up breaking our tail light.
Our truck was the only one that was damaged. Not to say that this all happened by anyone, but it was just a weird shift of events. Like, for some reason, just kind of hit our vehicle and no one else's. Joseph, Judith's dad, was really angry when we were doing this episode, so it was just kind of weird how it all played out.
We'll always keep you guys up to date on things that do happen from the aftermath.
I also didn't get to talk about my experience with my buffalo ghost since we've been so busy, but we will be covering a couple of cases of spirits that reach out to me there at some point. I just don't know when since we have so many cases.
So now we're going to move on to the Poltergeist movie deaths, which is also a very bizarre situation.
Yeah, it is. There has always been like a rumor that there's like a poltergeist curse attached to the Poltergeist trilogy and its crew members. Basically, it comes from the fact that 4 cast members had died in the 6 years between the releases of the first and third films.
The rumor is often fueled by the fact that real cadavers were used as props in various scenes of Poltergeist 1 and Poltergeist 2.
Yes, here is a quote from what happened with the bones. "I acquired a number of actual biological surgical skeletons, is what they're called. They're for hanging in classrooms and study. These are actual skeletons from people. I think the bones that are acquired were from India, but at any rate, we got 13 of those, and we dressed them up so they looked not so bleached, clean, or bolted together skeletons, but instead disintegrating cadavers. And added sculpture, rubber, and things to them, so it would look kind of dramatic, leery, spooky, not the dull kind. What am I trying to say? Clinical type of corpse,
Of course, there were 13 of them. It's almost like they prepared the curse without even knowing it.
Pretty much. The worst part about it is Jo Beth Williams, she was the mother in the movie, was not made aware that these bones were real skeletons when they used them in the scene until after she finished shooting it. And of course, she had nightmares about it.
I don't blame anybody who does have nightmares about that. I'm pretty sure probably I would as well. Even the clown that was in the first movie that was sitting on the chair, like that was haunted too. I'm very convinced.
I agree with you there as well. Clearly, they wanted that creep factor, but that clown was creepy even before it starred in the movie.
After the first movie was completed, a strange series of events started to take place to the actors and actresses that were on set, and even more as time progressed on.
Dominique Dunne, who played the eldest daughter Dana in the first movie, died on November 4th, 1982, at the age of 22 after she had been strangled by her abusive former boyfriend John Thomas Sweeney. He was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 6 years in prison, but was paroled after serving only 3.5 years.
Julian Beck, 60-year-old actor who played Henry Kane in Poltergeist 2, The Other Side, died on September 14th, 1985. He died of stomach cancer diagnosed before he had accepted the role.
Will Sampson, 53 years old, who played Taylor in The Medicine Man in Poltergeist 2, died as a result of post-operative kidney failure and preoperative malnutrition problems on June 3rd of 1987.
Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann in all 3 Poltergeist movies, died on February 1st, 1988 at the age of 12, after what doctors initially described as an acute form of influenza, but later changed to septic shock after bacterial toxins invaded her bloodstream. At the time, she had suffered acute bowel obstruction, initially diagnosed as Crohn's disease, which may have been the cause of death.
I see that they had also made a remake in 2013. I don't really believe it went anywhere, but I also heard some weird things happened there too.
Well, that one had seemed to fail, but it looks like they plan to make another remake, but that was before COVID happened. I haven't heard anything else since then.
I'm thinking when they do it, it's only going to kill some of those actresses and actors. More so the females than the males, though.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Dominique Ellen Dunne, born on November 23rd, 1959. She was an American actress. She made her on-screen debut with the television film Diary of a Teenage Hitchhiker.
Dunne's breakthrough came with the starring role of Dana Freeling in the horror film Poltergeist in 1982. She also felt like this was the role to make her career take off, and she still agrees with that.
On October 30th, 1982, Dunne was strangled by her ex-boyfriend, John Thomas Sweeney, during an argument on the driveway of her West Hollywood home and fell into a coma, dying 5 days later on November 4th of 1982, in a court case which gained significant media coverage.
October 30th is an important date for some reason connected to these movies. My brother was even born on October 30th. Now, John's sentence seemed to be a little bit on the low side, but she also knows that he wasn't the only reason that this happened, so she only partially blames him. And he had no idea of how he lost that kind of control.
While her career was taking off, Dominique was going through a difficult time in her personal life. Specifically, she had just broken up with her boyfriend, who worked as a chef in Los Angeles after a string of disturbing incidences.
Sweeney was extremely possessive of her and kept close tabs on her. She had stated to her father, "He's not in love with me, Dad. He's obsessed with me." She said that part was all him. He was very possessive and obsessed to the point where he didn't want her to be with anyone else. And from what she shows me, she didn't know this thing had a hold on him.
The couple's frequent arguments eventually escalated into physical abuse, and at one point Sweeney allegedly grabbed Dunne by the hair so forcefully that he pulled some of it out. Dunne hit her breaking point in September of 1982 after Sweeney tried to strangle her.
A friend staying at Dominique's home interrupted the assault, and she said, "He tried to kill me." She left the house and stayed elsewhere for days. Eventually, she was able to get Sweeney to move out of her LA home.
Sadly for Dominique, John remained fixated on her. He returned to her house the night of October 30th, 1982, hoping for reconciliation, while she was rehearsing with actor David Packer.
The pair were co-stars in the science fiction miniseries V. She had already filmed 2 of the 3 episodes. Dominique stepped out onto her porch to speak to Sweeney, and when she refused to get back together with him, he grabbed her and pulled her on the yard next door.
There is where he strangled her until she was unconscious. A later report indicated that he had choked her for about 5 minutes. Packer left the house and ran into Sweeney. He told Packer that I killed my girlfriend.
Yeah, she said that she was trying her hardest to get this man away from her, and she was at her breaking point, of course. She didn't care anymore at this point, and she said she was not scared of him anymore, and I think she started to stand up to him.
Once he got out of prison, he changed his name to John Patrick Mora and still works as a chef.
Now, from what Dominique says to me, she can't even remember exactly when he became so difficult, but she wants everyone to know that once upon a time, he was really nice and really sweet.
Was he around on the set of the movies for the Poltergeist?
She shows me that he did come around. She's telling me that some spooky things did happen during that point. She shows me that there was this eerie feeling on certain parts of the set, and she believed that there was evil entities on set that caused a lot of these issues. And from what she shows me, a lot of people that were on set with her agreed.
So what does she mean by that?
She said that even though things on set weren't always eerie, but when they were filming parts with these live cadavers, things would just happen on set. Lights and videos messing up, and she said that everyone just had this angry demeanor. Everyone was extra edgy. Her loving boyfriend, whom was a little obsessed for sure, but he really didn't have that kind of anger inside of him. Although it seemed crazy, she felt like something there hurt him. What's even crazier is that she kept hearing the name Jude or Judith. And no, not Barcy, but another one. And she brought this information to her boyfriend, John. He told her she was crazy or would tease her about it. He didn't take it seriously. In fact, shows me that he would challenge this demon as a joke. Come on and get me. I'm not afraid of you. Either way, when poltergeists or demons are challenged, sometimes they answer.
Where did this evil entity come from?
I'm not sure. I feel like it was like a curse that was kind of accidentally stumbled upon. And of course, 4267 Roxbury Street in Semi Valley, California was the location of the home. And I feel like things started to happen there and it just kind of, happened. Something under that house was like awoken. Something bad came forward. Dominique shows me that the spirit was angry about this movie, was angry about the bones in the home, was angry to be disturbed, was awoken. She feels like the evil entity latched on to John, at least a part of it, since he was an easy host.
Can you describe how he was an easy host?
Well, with Elisa Lam, she was innocent, vulnerable. With this guy, he was pretty angry and the aggressive type, who also was easy to manipulate into doing things against their own will, especially since he had challenged this Judith spirit.
Does she know if the demons came from the first house itself?
She doesn't know, but I feel this thing clung onto the cast and hung on to them, even items, even years to come, almost like a death curse, kind of like Final Destination. That's really how I can explain it.
All right, that makes sense because even after those 4 people had passed on, Richard Lawson was aboard U.S. Air Flight 405 when it crashed into Flushing Bay in March of 1992. A total of 27 people out of the 51 on board were killed. Lawson survived, but the event is yet another reason people claim the movie brought bad luck onto the cast.
Yeah. And another is the murder in 2009. A second cast member was murdered, Lou Perryman, who played a small role of Pugsley in the original film. He was 67 years old when a recently released ex-convict killed him in his own home with an axe.
Let's talk about the real-life cadavers. Did that upset the poltergeist?
From what Dominique shows me, it angered the demons, including this demon Judith. I believe that one of the cadavers used was murdered. I believe that she somehow managed to obtain some more energy from this angry cadaver, and it sort of helped push the energy to a higher form.
So the concern about the use of real skeletons on the set of the first film, Native American actor Will Sampson performed an exorcism on the set of the second film in 1984. He went to the set late at night by himself to do it. The next day, the cast supposedly felt relieved. Do you know if this worked at all?
I feel like it masked it. I feel like it was like a little band-aid, if you will. I feel like if anything, this poltergeist attached itself to people, the props, objects on set, a lot of things. And then the bones being buried too.
There was also another weird thing that happened as well. The little girl Heather that played Carol Ann, she had her own Cabbage Patch doll, and apparently someone was able to get their hands on it.
Now, this is a really messed up story. You ready for this? There was a couple who decided to purchase her Cabbage Patch doll. I'm not sure when, where, or how, but the doll arrived on October 30th. This is their story, so I'm going to read it on their behalf. We were in awe. Halloween Day, we left for our anniversary trip to Reno. Our anniversary is on November 1st. While in Reno, we got a call that my wife's stepbrother had been in a terrible accident while playing soccer. He ended up with a ruptured spleen and broken ribs. Due to internal bleeding, he was hospitalized for 5 days. 3 days later, my father-in-law became ill. Within 2 days, he was in a coma. Then he was diagnosed with encephalitis. He remained in a coma for 5 to 6 days, and we almost lost him. Miraculously, he woke up after a 9-day stint. He is still in rehab for brain damage. We thought we could get back to our lives after a very trying few weeks. However, we were wrong. December 2nd, my wife found out her childhood friend, John, had committed suicide by gunshot. On December 8th, our good friend Dawn died of heart failure. She was 33. Shortly after, my mother was having agonizing pain in her hip. She ended up having surgery on the 7th of January. My wife's uncle passed away from a heart attack. He had no known medical conditions. January 26th, my wife was hospitalized for the night with a rare intestinal infection. And at the end of January, I left my job for a new company, and then on February 12th, I was let go. February 14th, we had to put our dear dog Zeus down, and early March, our 4-year-old Pomeranian lost a tooth. It just keeps going. Shortly after that, my wife was told something was wrong with her heart, and they suspended her driver's license. She had to wear heart monitors for 24 hours, and they still don't know what's wrong. On the 27th of March, due to an error, Kern County Child Support levied my account right before a bunch of debt purchases and auto drafts cleared. This left us with a negative balance of almost $2,000. My car broke down 2 days prior. Last week, the doctors notified my mother her surgery not only failed, but she had a fracture in her hip. She had to have a hip replacement on the 8th of April. On top of all of that, my wife and I had not gotten along, and there is a constant tension in the air, and the topic of divorce has come up more than once.
They, of course, had called a paranormal investigator on this case to hear his own take on it, and if there has been any follow-ups with the doll's owners, and the investigators also feel like it was something attached to the movies and Heather.
He believes the doll was responsible for Dustin and Jamie Lynn's recent misfortunes as well. He explained that there was some type of curse on it. It goes all the way back to the Poltergeist movies. Steven Spielberg obviously used those bones from India, which upset the spirit world, which caused this curse. So yeah, I believe the curse was manifesting from that doll when it was trying to prevent the cleansing, which caused me to become quite dizzy.
So that thing is now attached to the doll as well.
Sadly, I believe it's attached to many different things and items connected. Some things are still out there, and no one really knows either. All I know is that if you get too close to Judith, your life could become one streak of bad luck after another, and potentially lead you to death. I've never had an evil doll in my life, and I don't plan to, but I would for sure investigate one.
I know that we have heard from Dominique. Were there any other spirits stepping forward from the cast?
The only other stepping forward was Heather. And from what she shows me, she had a lot of bad experiences from the moment she had stepped on set as well.
Can you elaborate on what kind of bad experiences?
Well, she said that she had nightmares and that she also heard this Judith person and others as well. But she also describes Judith as a child, and that is what she's drawn to. And since she was doing a movie on ghosts and things in the other realm, it was hard for her to determine what was real and what was fake based on the attachment to the movie, which makes sense. She was a young kid too. But she shows me that she was really observant as well.
What was hard for her to understand?
Well, she wasn't the only child on set, of course, but for some reason this poltergeist was very drawn to Heather, and it would talk to her. And in those moments, they had the flashing lights inside the house. She said the lights would go off sometimes without anyone touching them. She said that she had seen many objects move, but the craziest thing that happened during the first movie was that someone had told her she was going to die young.
Who said that to her?
She said it was someone on set, just a person. She was an older woman. She wasn't anyone who was in the movie. Somebody in the background. She said she cleaned up the set, and she claims she has a Spanish nationality. She kept telling her death was coming for her and that she should be careful.
Can you imagine telling that to a child?
I mean, that part was weird for me for sure. Maybe better to tell the parents? But I don't know. I don't know if I could ever personally say, you're going to die, to anyone, one way or another, no matter how much I'm pushed to say it.
All right, let's talk about her illness and her death. Does she remember anything weird about her death?
From what she shows me, that she was perfectly fine, was doing well in her life and health. She said that she didn't feel sick. Then one day out of nowhere, things just progressed. She went from being super healthy to being super sick in a matter of minutes. She shows me it was just a normal cold feeling, and then she got really sick. She said she felt this thing around her even then. She said that she was too weak to talk about the bigger details because her family was taking care of her, and she didn't want to scare anyone either. She said that she had planned to do other movies, and she's sad that she didn't get to.
Does she still come in child form?
She really does, actually. And still blonde hair, blue eyes, very, very white. Her skin is bright. She shows me she enjoyed being a child. She feels more drawn to children. She also shows me that her family did everything they could do to save her, but she wasn't going to get better because of this curse. She said she knew it was a curse. She said she felt it in her blood, her body. She felt off. And it didn't go away, almost like a burning sensation in her veins. Even after she would stop filming, she said that this thing just wanted her dead before the ending of the third movie one way or another.
How did she know all of this?
She said that it told her. She even remembers when she was playing with the phone, she needed to use it in the second movie, the pretend phone, and she said she heard voices talking to her on that too.
Wow. Does she feel like this demon is still out there somewhere?
Yes, she does. She said she can still sense it. She said that she had many, many toys, and her toys all carried it with them. It was like cooties. She would touch everything. I know a lot of the toys are no longer around, but some things are still around. Some props on set and that doll.
All right, let's talk about the Cabbage Patch doll, which I remember from my childhood. That doll was around and tattooed on my memory. Even more so now. Did this doll or any other dolls cause her any issues, or did she feel any bad energy around them?
Oh yeah, that doll is tattooed to my forehead too. 80s and 90s babies. From what she shows me, the doll was pretty good during the day. No issues at all, actually. She didn't hear anything, but at night, that is when things really started to come to life. She said her doll's eyes would glow. She said that her family also had a streak of bad luck. She said that her illness being one of them, of course. She said that they also had a lot of things happen with money and accidents, and she said things didn't stop even after she died.
What things happened after she did die?
From what she shows me, things went missing, and her family couldn't handle it anymore. A lot of her items were sold and sent away. After this thing did die down a bit, she said that if anyone had possession of those items, and some still do, she said to be careful with it. She said to warn people that this is bad, and to stay away from it, seriously.
Exactly. Actually, on Poltergeist in general, we will tell you a few tips maybe to make sure you feel a little bit more safe and perhaps give you some guidance. Poltergeists tend to prefer women to men.
Yep, so all the guys are lucky, go figure. Doesn't surprise me at all, though. A person-focused poltergeist tends to hunt people and not items. usually involve a woman adolescent who is suffering from emotional turmoil when the activity begins.
Some of the best poltergeists are thought to be fakes.
Most people don't believe in these things anyways, so they can be hidden.
Poltergeists like to mess with your stuff.
Poltergeist activities typically start with minor isolated incidents. This could include unexplained sounds or familiar objects such as your keys or your phone moving from their usual place. But while poltergeist activity is typically short-lived, manifestation typically lasts around 5 months. Some cases persistent over several years.
In this case, seems like years and years.
Yes, Judith does go dormant for a bit, then comes back, and of course, during spooky season, I would say it's her favorite time to come and play.
Some believe that emotional stress can be a cause of activity. Some ghost hunters and paranormals purpose that poltergeists are actually the emotions of troubled individuals built up during times of stress.
I feel that to be kind of true. It feeds off of angry energy in extreme emotional situations, like vampires with blood.
How do we know if there is an active poltergeist in the home?
Disappearing objects. And no, I don't mean things that you end up finding later. I mean never being able to see it again. Objects levitating or thrown. I have personally never seen levitating objects in my life. I've seen thrown items, though.
I have seen levitating objects a very long time ago.
Power from nowhere. So if there's no power and things turn on.
When things start to magically start working when they were broken.
My grandfather did that with a wind-up toy he gave me after he had died. He was one of the good ones, though. It's like if all these things are happening all at the same time, yeah, something weird is going on.
Physical attacks feels like someone's hurting you or pushing you, like Britney Spears in her creepy house.
You can also take pictures in the dark with a flash on. It may be able to pick up on energy before the poltergeist leaves.
And lastly, Halloween time. It's the most open time for ghosts to be able to haunt the world, good and bad spirits, but it doesn't happen everywhere. Mostly, it's a good thing, a Day of the Dead in some cultures, but either way, it's more of a vulnerable state for poltergeists to walk the earth and cause the most damage.
I do not plan to connect with Judith, as she brings too much harm into the world, and I have placed my unicorn protection stone with me, as Judith hates unicorns, so I'm extra safe. But I do plan to speak to other spooky spirits in the future. Just not one that will try to kill my entire family.
Good idea. Well, guys, it's about that time again. Next week will be the next episode of the Austin Yogurt Shop Murders. We have had that one on the list for a while now, and we're finally going to be covering it.
Yes, I'm excited to get that one started as well.
I'm sure you will. Until next time, guys, stay freaked out.